because everybody can see, oh, they're going to all these big events, oh, they're getting all these free packages, oh, they're doing all this, it's so nice. But you don't see that I'm working 24/7. I can't shut my brain off. I am working 24/7. Do you know what it's like to work 24/7? One, there is no respect for the audit profession. Genuinely, I'm genuinely speaking. Your clients hate you.
Oh God.
So nobody respects that job, including the people who work in it.
Yeah.
So this is our cat Dora. So
Hi.
when I was studying CA, I studied service tax.
Okay.
Excise duty, service tax, customs.
हाँ.
Because तभी वो लॉ था.
Right.
2017 में सर्विस टैक्स निकल गया, जीएसटी आ गया.
Right.
तो अभी मेरे पास कोई एक्सक्यूज थोड़ी है. Like
कि मैंने तब
if I was still working in the accounts field, I can't say कि I studied service
tax. हाँ, obviously.
I have to learn GST झक मार के ना.
Correct.
I had bosses who would ask me at say 6 o'clock when I was looking 6-7 when I was looking to leave. अरे आप अभी निकल रहे हो? हाफ डे दे रहे हो आप? अरे आज हाफ डे. I was like, I came here at 11.
Yeah.
I've been out of the house since 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Attending my classes.
Yeah.
Then I'm coming here. If I was a TikToker and my livelihood depended on it and TikTok got banned, मेरा धंधा बंद हो गया भाई.
Right.
बंद हो गया ना सब कुछ.
Today on the Dhairya Decodes podcast, we have Niyati Marvin Kurve, a CA turned full-time content creator who is also the co-founder at Abhi and New. She is a Forbes 30 under 30 recipient, GQ 35 under 35 recipient, and also very recently Abhi and New got awarded as they also won the National Creators Award by the Honorable Prime Minister. They are on a mission to make the country a better place and to prove that individual actions also matter and they do count, to nudge everyone to make the environment a better place. And they do so by creating solution-oriented videos to make people a part of the solution rather than the problem. In today's episode, we're going to decode Niyati's career and her journey of actually making certain choices and ultimately doing what she's doing today. If you're someone who wants to tread a similar career path, do stay tuned till the very end, and I cannot wait to get into this conversation with Niyati. Welcome to the Dhairya Decodes podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And while I did introduce you and tell people a little bit about what you've been doing and specifically about Abhi and New, and obviously that's how in general the people address you, so to say. I'd like to tell you something about how I actually got to know about the two of you and what you do, firstly, and then come to obviously the question I want to ask you and why. So, small story, I remember back on Facebook when, 100 Reasons to Love India, when you were running that entire series, and every day there would be like a, video coming up. And that was when I think I was not very active on Facebook, but your videos were getting circulated and forwarded on WhatsApp groups, right? Obviously. And I remember that was the very first, I didn't even know that what was your individual name or Abhi's name. I just knew that these two people are moving all over the country and making this video series, and this is amazing. That was my first intervention to actually, obviously, having met you a couple of times and understanding a bit more about what you do, and also as an audience who watches your videos. When we look at the content that you create, right, today, it's very difficult to understand what could have been the reason to do what you're doing. I don't want to go there directly, but Niyati, I feel a large part of how a person makes certain choices and what they do ultimately, I feel is connected to their childhood. I want to start with understanding what kind of a family were you brought up in and the kind of environment that you were brought up in and the things that you saw happening around you. Did they have any influence on how your thinking was shaped early on to be making certain career choices and even moving towards this?
So I grew up in a very typical Asian family that was focused on academics, on academic excellence, and I've been a nerd my entire life. I have loved reading.
Okay.
My mom has this story that they showed me books when I was a young child,
Huh.
and I used to look at the photos and ask her to show me these books every day. And then they have the story that when I was 6 months old, I could tell if the magazine was ulta or not.
Acha.
Like they used to give me an ulta magazine and I would flip it
Flip it.
to
Okay.
the right side. So I have always had a connection with books. I have always read books. I love reading, and somehow that has been like the one line explanation to what my career has been throughout has been my journey of exploring or learning new things, or my journey of knowledge. So that's the whole connecting thread, regardless of whatever career path that I have chosen. So
Got
that
it.
was my upbringing. It was a very typical upbringing what everybody has, but then my parents had this one principle ki, like, for education, if you want to learn anything, or you want to consume more books, because at that time there was no internet or whatever,
Right.
there was no upper limit. If
ठीक
I
है.
wanted to, so they got me this very expensive series of books called the early learning series, 24 books where you could read and understand a lot about the world. So then their focus was always on making sure we got the right education, we studied hard, we learned and explored different things. So that was my upbringing.
Got it. So that means education was at the forefront, obviously.
Yeah.
Reading, books, that was inculcated in terms of values.
Yeah.
And I want to understand, like, while growing up, like you said, that when you were 6 months, you could flip like a magazine.
That's what my mom said.
I'm sure you could. I want to also understand that were there early thoughts, because you were so connected to books and reading so much about so many things fairly early on than your peers, I'm assuming. Did you ever have thoughts of, I want to do this or become this? Or did you have any early, I would say, notions of, this is what I would like to become or be, and then life would be good?
So I changed my professions every single year. So when I was in 6th standard, I wanted to be a marine biologist because I'm
Okay.
very connected to the sea.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I wanted to be in the 7th.
Okay.
Then in the 8th and 9th, I was like, oh, maybe I want to be, an author. So I was reading a lot of classics and stuff from the library. I would literally borrow one book every day till like the librarian got sick of me and said,
Jao.
don't borrow so much, bas ho gaya.
Haan.
So that's what it was. And then the 10th, I was kind of thinking maybe I should do ornithology, which is studying birds.
Birds.
And then I was wondering,
Wow.
because you don't have study of birds and all of this stuff in India.
Yeah.
So then I was looking at things abroad, and then slowly I started thinking, okay, I like economics
Okay.
as well, and I like chemistry as well. So that was my conundrum. What do I want to actually study? What do I want to become? So that's kind of my zone. My career goalposts shifted very wildly every single year based on what I was doing.
Got it. And obviously, since you mentioned you were a nerd, that was the first thing you didn't mention. I'm sure you were doing very well academically.
I had a few off years, but
Uh-huh.
then I have academically pushed myself every single exam.
Got it.
Yeah.
So when the crucial 10th grade, so to say, years came in and you had to, like, let's say after 10th, you make a choice, right? Typically, do you want to go down like the science, commerce, art stream? How was that juncture like? Because you were very clear, I'm assuming.
It was very random, actually. I was one of those rare people who was like, I want to take science, but I don't want to become a doctor and I don't want to do engineering. I was very clear on that.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to do medical because I'm scared of blood. It's very gory.
So you took science, but you
No,
didn't
I
want to
didn't take
become a
science.
doctor.
I didn't take science.
Acha.
I wanted to take science, but I didn't want to do medical or engineering because I didn't like physics. I
Okay.
loved chemistry, but I didn't like physics.
ठीक है.
So I was like, I don't want to do engineering. And I was like, I don't like the sight of blood, so I don't want to do medical.
Okay.
And then I was trying to find whatever was like the scattered fields left for science in India without these two major
science.
streams.
Uh,
And then I actually ended up taking one of those mock tests that these IIT coaching people gave very randomly, okay, without having any intention. And then I came third in those tests as per whoever came. So they harassed me for 2 months saying, come and join our institute, come and join. And I was like, but I don't want to join the IIT. मुझे नहीं करना है.
हाँ.
मुझे करना ही नहीं है. Why are you chasing me?
हाँ.
So it was pretty random. Then 10-15 days before my results, my parents sat me down and my dad was like, I feel like you have a very good head for commerce.
Okay.
I feel like you'll do very well in commerce. Like you're very good with numbers, and you have that sort of a sense. So I feel you'll do well in commerce. And then that got me thinking, and I was like, वैसे मुझे economics अच्छा तो लगता है. So then, do I study chemistry or do I study economics? Then I was like, ठीक है, let's give economics a try. So that's how I joined commerce, and that's how a person who was society thought I was gonna take science my entire life. So and I shifted to commerce.
Ah.
that's how random of a journey it was.
Very interesting. No, but yeah, like you said, the society and I mean, considering your grades and how everything had been, the straight set forward career path was okay. Science, like she'll probably do
I
something
mean,
in that
it
field.
was kind of it was, people were so shocked because I got 91.86 in 10th standard. And mind you, this is 2006, okay? So they didn't give marks liberally. The topper in my year was 94. We didn't have 99% marks and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I was like the top 25th or something like that. So then people were like, oh, you're 92 and you're taking commerce. I was like, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you ended up taking commerce.
Yeah, I ended up taking commerce.
Got it. And tell us a little bit about, you took commerce. How were those years like? Did you actually start liking the subjects that you were studying?
Yeah, I mean, so the thing about commerce is you start on a fresh slate when you enter in the 11th.
Right.
It doesn't matter where your other beginnings have been. Whenever you take commerce, you have to learn the basics of accounts in 11th standard.
Right.
So you learn everything from scratch. So it doesn't matter whatever you knew before. So it was quite interesting and I actually quite enjoyed it. So I don't know, my parents were right, I guess. So it was very nice. Until date, I still do my own accounts. I still do my own taxes. I'm very particular about that. I was like, I enjoy it.
You take care of your own taxes?
Yeah, I do. It's
Wonderful,
very
yeah.
simple. It's very simple. It's very, very, very simple.
I wish I can learn that from you.
It's very simple.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, you went on to obviously make an unconventional choice, so to say, because people thought you'd take science, and you were also obviously not sure of how it would turn out, but you started liking the subjects you were studying. When you were, I'm assuming you were again scoring well, everything was great, probably.
So.
Decently, yeah, fine. So I want to understand that now once college was also done, then again there comes this juncture where you have to decide now what next, right? After college.
Actually, so I was in NM College,
Okay.
which is one of the top commerce colleges in Mumbai.
In Mumbai, yeah.
So when I went into, so by the time I was in 11th, 12th, people were sort of veering towards doing CA.
Acha.
Very heavily. So it was like, we had in degree college, we had a batch of 960 and about 900 people were doing CA. That's how heavily it was tilted in CA's favor. And then my dad was like, okay, you're doing commerce, so CA is the best degree out there. So I was like, okay, कर लेते हैं, knowledge के लिए कर लेते हैं. And that's how I did it. But so I'd already given the first exam CPT.
Acha.
Then when I was in SY BCom, I studied for like 6 months straight and then gave IPCC.
Okay.
And then I had to do internship. And at that time, I was like, I'm just 19. I don't want to work right now. I want to enjoy my college life because I was like, I spent 6 months studying for this one exam and missed out on college. And parents also like, yeah, kya karegi itte jaldi kaam karke? Anyway, in a year you'll graduate college and then you have to work anyway.
Right.
Might as well work at that time.
Correct.
So that's how I spent the last year of my college doing extracurricular activities. I did road track, I did college festivals. I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
Again, triggered the entire college because they were like, why haven't you started your articleship? I said, well, in 5 years it won't matter. In 5 years it won't matter that I took a year off.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be a CA, you will be a CA. So how does it matter? Like in 5 years. People used to come and ask me every day, when are you starting your articleship? And I said, my answer is not changed. It is like, sometimes we want to do things way too quickly before they're due and we end up missing out on so much.
Yeah.
Because I'll never get that college life back
again, yeah.
Yeah, and it was during that time when I was doing extracurricular activities when I met Abhi. So had I actually done articleship, the whole trajectory of my life would have been very different.
Yeah.
So that's how it was. So I chilled. I mean, organized a lot of festivals, learned a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then started doing my articleship.
Guys, there's a very big takeaway. You may find your life partner if you just chill for a bit.
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean,
chill for a bit.
Do extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
So, and do road track. A
Very
lot of people find their partners in road track.
You found him in road track?
Yeah, both of us were doing extracurricular activities.
Acha.
So, we had a lot of
overlaps.
Yeah.
Got
Even
it.
my mama and mommy are like a road track couple. So then,
Okay.
yeah.
Very interesting. Okay.
So,
Amazing. So, I mean, you went on to not just take up commerce and do well at it, you also prepared for the CA, became a CA as well, cleared the examinations, did the articleship a little later. The entire, I don't want to use the word facade, but this entire conversation and chatter around CA, and obviously it being a difficult, definitely one of the most difficult examinations, and obviously how toll taking it can get for a lot of people because it's wide in terms of curriculum. It's not easy for everybody to get through it in the first attempt, right? And there is pressure from the society, friends, everybody. How were the preparation years for you, Niyati? Because we keep hearing stories of so many people, making it their entire life.
To be really honest, I loved studying for
Yeah.
my exams. The moment I wrote my last paper for IPCC, which is the inter exam, I was genuinely depressed. I was like, I don't know what to do with my life now. Because I enjoyed putting myself through the grind, studying for 12 hours, reading through books again and again, solving papers. So I'm an outlier. This doesn't apply to me. I enjoyed studying. So, and it worked out good for me. Also, I was 12th rank, 12th All India rank in CA intern.
My God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I decided that during articleship I'll do CS also. So then I did CS and I just did inter. I just did CS inter.
CS inter.
I just did inter, yeah.
Achha.
I studied for like 3 weeks and got 9th rank. So I don't know.
She's not flexing, but okay.
I mean, maybe I'm flexing a little bit, but I love studying. I genuinely.
I can see that clearly.
I enjoyed.
I mean, you're just doing things effortlessly, right? I mean,
there was a lot of effort, but
effortlessly in the sense that it doesn't look like you had to put a lot of.
no, I had to put a lot. I studied for 12 and a half.
But you enjoyed
14,
it.
14, 15 hours sometimes.
But you
I
enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
Probably it just came to you very naturally. That was a default for you.
Yeah, I loved studying. So
Bas,
I loved learning something new.
Right.
So that's what it was. People do CA for jobs or investment banking and stuff like that. I just did it because I wanted to learn something new, like for the knowledge.
So it was not for a job that would come after it?
Not really.
Not really.
I did it like what Rancho said, like just do it for the knowledge. So, yeah. I'm not saying I'm Rancho. That character is very smart. I can't do stuff like that, but I genuinely did it for the knowledge because I didn't know what I wanted to do after that. After I passed CA final, they had this career orientation thing in like Rang, Sharda, and Bandra. And they had these different sessions. Like if you want to work in a hotel, then these are the roles that are available. This is what the job is. Somebody came and said, this is what happens if you work in a manufacturing firm, in a pharma firm. And I was like, it all sounds interesting. And then there was one guy who called, who was on stage, and then he made people stand up and say, what do you want to do? And everybody, I was like, please don't pick me, please don't pick me, please don't pick me. And then everybody he was picking was like, I want to do investment banking. I want to do investment banking. And then he picked me. And I said, I don't know what to do. And he made fun of me. And
for not knowing what you
want to do. And I was like, to be honest, when you're 20, 21, it's really hard to know. See, some people, like for example, they want to be doctors and they really feel passion.
Yeah.
My passion is I want to heal people.
Yeah.
I want to fix,
issues that they're going through.
I actually want to heal them. I want to, like for example, if you like working with bones and you're like, I really want to be in orthopedic. If you're somebody who enjoys, or you've grown up in a family where there are gynacs, then they're like, yeah, I want that field because I enjoy working with, the women reproductive system.
Yeah.
So that comes from, andar se aata hai wo. I didn't have any such calling like that. Ki, do I want to be an investment banker? I don't know. Do I want to be in the pharma industry? I don't know.
Got it.
Because the 3 years ka training that I had was just to sit and audit the books of companies.
Yeah.
How will I know what it's like to? I have not seen any other, so how can I make a decision?
True.
And I feel like we put so much pressure on kids to know what they want and tend to stigmatize people who change roles. I was like, what if you decide in like 12th standard that you hate science and you want to do commerce? So, of course, the shift will be a little rough because in commerce, 11th education is really basic and it's required.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be, harping on the fact that, arey, isne badal diya, and oh my god, what a shame, and all that stuff. Because you're really never going to know.
But that happens quite a lot in
India. Of course. A lot. How is a child who has not been exposed to different jobs. No, that
That
person
was the right thing, yeah, for
like
them.
everybody who said they wanted to do investment banking over there, have you all worked as an investment banker? Do you know the stresses involved? Do you know how much time it takes or the toll it takes on your body? Or are you just attracted to that field because there's a lot of money in it?
Right. Yeah.
Every CA was like, I want to do investment banking. My question to them was that only, do you know what that job involves? And the sad part about all our education systems is that they don't have this option involved anywhere. So people only have an outside
View of how it looks
of
like.
how it looks like. भाई बाहर से तो सब अच्छा लगता है.
True.
When you go to a shop and you look at the sarees or whatever the dresses from outside, it may look very nice, but then you go inside and you find it's a khokla store. They have bad products.
Yeah.
But we don't have safeguards in this country to find out that you've made a mistake until you've gone inside that shop and already done stuff.
True.
So that's the tragedy. And I was like, that person was asking me and he was like, no, you'll never be successful if you don't know what to do. And I was like, how am I supposed to know what I'm supposed to do without experiencing it?
Yeah.
I have only studied the syllabus so far and given an exam.
Yeah.
How would I know? Like, for example, how will you know what a taxation consultant does? What international transfer consultants do? You will never know until you work there and you experience it. For that, we have to have a flexible internship structure, which my course did not have. And I think it still does not have it. Neither do most of the courses.
Yeah, most of the courses.
Most of the courses don't have a flexible internship thing. And India doesn't have this system where kids can go when they're in colleges and work and see how it is.
Correct.
So we don't experience anything and we're supposed to have the pressure of making a career decision. That is so wrong. I don't fault anyone for being confused in their career because you will never know until you try.
True. Yeah.
And our system never makes us try.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of our system, our everything is just to avoid us from making mistakes, to stop us from making
the mistakes.
But you'll never learn until you make a mistake. You'll never learn until you do a job or an internship, work there for 3 months and you're like, yeah, no, this is not for me.
Right.
That is primarily why I do the job I do on LinkedIn, which is tell people the pitfalls of doing content creation. Because everybody can see, oh, they're going to all these big events, oh, they're getting all these free packages, oh, they're doing all this, so nice. But you don't see that I'm working 24/7. I can't shut my brain off. I am working 24/7. Do you know what it's like to work 24/7? Do you know what it is like to not have a fixed income coming to you every month?
Yeah.
Do you know what it's like to have extraordinarily high variable income and not know whether it's going to... Do you know what it's like to operate in a field where I don't know if I was a TikToker and my livelihood depended on it and TikTok got banned, मेरा धंधा बंद हो गया भाई.
Right.
बंद हो गया ना सब कुछ.
Right.
So it's a high risk, high reward sort of a field. And even in that field, everybody doesn't make it.
Yeah.
Those are the grim realities. And I was like, people should know this. So that's how it is. The whole career conversation in India is so warped. Because nobody should know what they want to do.
And they can't.
Why would a 15-year-old want to decide that I want to be this?
Yeah, I mean, I can second everything you've said. It's been 4 years. I've been a career coach. I've spoken to thousands of students from every single field, wanting to move to a different field or wanting to do something just because their parents want to do it, or not knowing. And like you said, the biggest, I think, worry that they come with on their head or a burden is, I'm not able to figure out what to do. And I always say it's okay if you don't know what you want to do, which is the most normal thing to actually come with. But I think, like you very rightly said, it's probably also because of how the entire system is built. As you said, that's the reason I personally at least went through 25 internships before I graduated, because I was like, how else do I... चलो management करना है, समझ में आ गया. Management के अंदर क्या करना है, कैसे पता चलेगा? If I don't try, don't do an internship for 2 months in it, figure out करना है कि नहीं करना है, how will I know by the time placements come in? Do I want to do sales, marketing, operations?
Exactly.
It's endless. So I'm glad you brought up that point, Niyati. And again, also glad about the fact that you very openly spoke about this thing that, okay, see, I am probably an outlier. For me, it was very easy and it was not difficult for me to, let's say, pass through these examinations because it was just you went with the flow. But, you know, with that, let me also move on to asking you, after you were done with giving the examinations, etc., I think you did a 3-year articleship with Deloitte. It's a big four. And again, it's a very aspirational tax firm to work at for a lot of graduates straight out of college, even today. Um, what did those 3 years teach you about the corporate world, about systems, processes, and how did it change you or help you evolve as a person?
Some of the things that I did learn were one, there is no respect for the audit profession. Genuinely, I'm genuinely speaking. Your clients hate you.
Oh, God.
So nobody respects that job, including the people who work in it.
Why do you think that happens?
So the thing
Is it preconceived notions?
no,
What
it's
is it?
not. No, it's not. The job of the auditor is to come to a company and look at their books and see if they're doing it right.
Yeah.
Whether they're following the systems, whether they're following the processes, and the company has to pay a fee for that.
Correct.
So the company is like, I am paying to have somebody come and tell me whether I'm doing a good job or not. So it is inherently kind of biased.
Biased, yeah.
We have to go and we have to disturb people who are doing their daily jobs, get information from them, do all the testing that we have to do. So there's no respect for.
And at times also pull them up for anything that they're probably not doing right.
Yeah, I mean, through our seniors.
Yeah, through your seniors, not directly. Yeah.
But because of the fact that the company pays the auditors, the company can also lean on the auditors to make sure that, you know,
Kar do, correct.
I mean, I'm not saying it happens.
Yeah.
But it is a possibility.
Right.
Because they are paying for it.
Yeah.
So there is a conflict of interest. So there is that, you know. Oh, CAs are going to come on this end. Hate on me. Sorry, guys. That is how it works.
Yeah.
So the other thing I really learned was when you study for like an exam, it's okay to leave things for option.
Okay.
But when you come to work, you may have to do the same thing you left an option. And you don't have the liberty of coming there and saying, I don't know how to do this. मैंने option में रखा था. This happened to me. Somebody came. They were people who had worked in Deloitte before. They graduated. I mean, they completed their CA and they joined back. And then that person came and said, I don't know how to do this. मैंने ये accounting standard option में छोड़ा था. I was like, that's not how it works in life. I said it in my mind because I was that person is the assistant manager. I was an articled assistant.
Yeah.
औकात में. पिटाई नहीं करवानी है. So, but I was like, that's not how it works. It's nice. It's very nice that you managed to pass by leaving it an option. Yeah. You got very lucky. But you can't come there and say that, that I don't know how to do this. I left it an option. Yeah. Okay. So this is our cat Dora. So. Hi. So that's how it is. That was a huge learning for me. I was like, you can't do this like that. You know, I mean, leaving things an option is not a really nice thing to do. It's a very, I don't know, I find it a very amateur thing to do. Because when you are going there as a person who has qualified and done a degree, there is no excuse. Correct. There is no excuse and nothing stops you from looking up stuff. Right. Doing it. Right. It's okay कि आपको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. There were things that I did not personally like end up understanding as well till the end. I was like, this is too hard and I don't have time. This is too hard. It's okay. But when you come up to work after you finish that degree, you can't dismiss it and say you do it because I never studied it. Correct. Your job over there is to, you know, look it up, study it then, and then fix it. Yeah. Like that's how it is. That's how. Yeah, basically do whatever it takes because that learning mindset and degree. And I learned that people once they qualify don't really. I mean, this is not just applicable to CAs. This is applicable in like to all professions. A lot. Yeah. People feel that once they're finished with their degree, once they're finished with their studying, that's the end of their studying. Yeah. That's very true. I agree. They feel like हो गया मेरा. अभी मेरे को किताब छूने की कभी जरूरत नहीं है. मेरा सब set for life. I'm set. Yeah. But that's not how it works. True. Like for example, I'll give you an example from CA. When I was studying CA, I studied service tax,
Okay.
excise duty, service tax, customs,
हाँ.
because तभी वो law था.
Right.
2017 में service tax निकल गया, GST आ गया.
Right.
तो अभी मेरे पास कोई excuse थोड़ी है. Like
कि मैंने तब
if I was still working in the accounts field, I can't say कि I studied service
service
tax.
tax, हाँ, obviously.
I have to learn GST झक मार के ना.
Correct.
You can't sit on your bum and say हो गया मेरा.
True.
But many people do that.
Most of the people do that.
Many people do that, and that sort of stuff is celebrated. कि हाँ ठीक है देखना बंदा अभी क्या. Like a person who will focus on continuous learning is sort of like उसका मजाक बना देते हैं कि ये बहुत पढ़ाकू है, ये क्या कर रहा है, तो कोई जरूरत नहीं है इसकी. But because they stop learning, it creates bad loops in their mind. Because knowledge keeps changing, things keep changing, things keep upgrading. So that's how it is. So those were my top learnings, that you have no you don't have a choice. You can't say कि option में छोड़ दिया तो हो गया.
Correct.
And you can't stop learning also, because you don't have a choice. Things will keep on changing, laws will keep on changing.
So I think if I was to summarize this, like you said, those 3 years taught you one thing, that most of the auditors are not looked at with or treated respectfully, for sure. That profession is not given due respect.
No, it's not.
Secondly, you also mentioned that a lot of times people would have, let's say, gone through the degree and received a degree, so to say, but probably they aren't able to really apply everything that they have learned via it, and because they stop learning, like you said, that continuous learning process does not happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like you said, you may have left something in an option as a subject, but that may come up when you're working, and then you're like, what do I do? Right? You're lost.
Yeah.
So those are real time scenarios that came up. But did it teach you anything about how did the early years of working in a corporate shape you up with understanding how working in a team is like? How does hierarchy function? Or how do you like take care of conflict if there is any of these things?
I actually learned how to not be a leader from,
Really?
my time. Yeah, because
Okay.
I had absolutely terrible bosses.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah.
I had bosses who would ask me at say 6 o'clock when I was looking 6, 7, when I was looking to leave. अरे आप अभी निकल रहे हो, half day ले रहे हो आप, अरे आज half day. I was like, I came here at 11.
Yeah.
I've been out of the house since 6 o'clock, attending my classes.
Yeah.
Then I'm coming here. Then I'm coming here and I'm working. I'm working from 11 o'clock and at 7 o'clock I'm leaving after working for 8 hours. And you're telling me aaj half day le rahe ho. How, in what scenario does this work? What productive work are you expecting me to do sitting till 12 o'clock every day? Like, I don't know why, like, so many of us will have bad bosses. So I learned, everything about bad bosses. Don't trust your employees. Make them sit for a really long time. Make them work hard. Make them sit even if they don't have work. Taunt them like half day le rahe ho, or make inconsiderate remarks about them. You can sit around doing time pass, but then they should be doing all of the work. And they're not checking their work for a really long time. I learned all of these traits about bad bosses. I had good bosses as well.
Yeah.
But then I had a fair load of bad bosses as well. So those were primarily the things that I learned.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I mean, because the thing about teams and stuff when you're doing articleship is you'll have people who are in all years. You may be in the first year. There'll be somebody who's in the second year, and there'll be somebody who's in the third year. Now the third year, you may interact with the third year one for like maybe a week or 2 weeks before that person leaves for study leave. Second year ke saath bhi depends on how much you interact. Some audits you may be the only person there. So some people may find a lot of friends. I used to switch a lot of audits, so then I kept switching a lot of teams because I was like, I know I don't want to do this my entire life. So I will switch as much as I can to learn as much as I can from different businesses.
Got it.
So I actually learned anti-corporates, if I can put it like that.
Which is okay. So what happened after the 3 years at Deloitte? during your articleship? What did you decide to do after that? And all of these experiences and learning.
So, my results were kind of weird. I passed the first group with 205 marks when the passing was 200. I did not believe it because there were people who had left more marks. Like their paper छूट गया था उनका and they had gotten more marks than me. In group 2, I got about 60 marks in 3 papers. And they consider that as an exemption.
Yeah.
But I got 29 marks in IT, which again I don't know how. It's not possible.
Yeah.
And because of that, I had to give only one paper in my second attempt. So what happened was that, like, I asked so many of my friends, and one of my friends, he runs friend's husband actually, he has a CA firm, and he was also like, in all of my time I've never heard somebody give only one paper
Yeah.
in the second attempt. Like, एक paper कौन देता है? I was like, yeah, well,
मैं देती
So-
हूँ.
but because of that, what happened was that officially on all the institute records, I was a second attempter. I was not a first attempt pass person.
Okay.
Because of that, what happened was I missed out on a lot of placements because they put a criteria over there कि से हम सिर्फ first attempt वाले लोगों को hire करेंगे. So then I could only apply for a few interviews. Some would only take people who have joined the top 4. Some would say only first attempt wale. So a lot of people I missed. A lot of companies I missed out because I was not a first attempt person. So फिर बाद में I got a job in a startup called housing.com.
Okay.
So that worked in real estate, kind of like Magic Bricks, 9 acres. So that's what housing.com was doing. So that's where I got a job.
What was the job role that they were offering
It
you?
was a marketing. It was like I had to do all the processes and everything for the marketing department. I had to pass all of their bills.
Why would they want a CA to do that?
No, they were like setting controls, passing bills, passing budgets, tracking budgets and stuff like that.
Got it.
So it was that. So they had one CA for like every department like that. So mine was marketing.
Understood.
So that's what I was doing. It was a lot of different, it was very different because it was a startup, and so we had to learn a lot of things, we had to do a lot of stuff.
Lot of ownership. Probably no.
Yeah, I mean, I had to go there and I was appalled that they were spending so much money. So all I was doing was going to the CFO and saying, look at how much money they're spending, this is appalling. So that's all I was doing. And sure, no. And then what happened was I worked there for about 6 months, and then I said this is really not something I want to do in my life.
Okay.
So I quit without a plan.
How did you know that it's not something you want to do?
Because I was like, I am spending a lot of time in my life traveling because my office was in Powai. So I got stuck in traffic every night while coming. So I was like, I don't see myself doing this every day. And I was like, I like to write, I like to do stuff for the environment, and I'm not able to do anything. So that's why I said, yeah, I'm gonna quit.
Right. Like you said, you decided to resign in 6 months, which a lot of people might think is very early on to figure out things. But I mean, if you've realized this is not my cup of tea or it's not my calling, then why spend more time at it and probably just not being happy with your day-to-day life?
Yeah.
So when you did that, Niyati, I want to understand, how was that phase of not having a plan, like not knowing what to do?
So I said, let me try freelance writing. So I would go on.
Just to interrupt you, you were making like a monthly paycheck back then. So I also want to understand.
I said goodbye to
Yeah.
a very nice paycheck.
So how was that feeling when you quit and the next month nothing came in? There was.
Yeah, I was fine.
You were okay?
I was fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is my time to take risks. So and I was like, I used to do some freelance work with other companies before.
Okay.
So I spoke to them to increase my hours. I worked as a book marketing assistant.
Book marketing assistant.
Yeah,
very interesting.
For authors based in the US.
Okay.
So I would work on their whenever they released a book, उसका क्या marketing plan होना चाहिए वगैरह. I mean, I just did a few tasks, not the full thing. I didn't make a full marketing plan, but then I learned a lot. So then those are the things, and I was like, okay, let me do freelance writing as well. So I was looking at different job boards, applying to different jobs, doing odd stuff, writing content for websites and stuff like that.
And
So
you
that's
said you
what.
loved writing,
Yeah,
anyways,
I enjoyed
because
it.
of
Yeah,
the, I mean, I'm assuming because you were reading and you had read so much,
I just
writing had to kind of come in.
I enjoyed it. So then I was trying that. So it took me a while to figure it out, how it should go, what sort of companies I should work with, what am I enjoying and stuff like that. So, but it was a proper grind for like, I guess, 2 years or something. It was a proper
2 years?
grind. Yeah, it was a proper grind.
So for 2 years after housing.com, you didn't really take up another job per se.
No, I've not taken up a job since housing.com. So
Amazing.
Since
So that was it.
Since 2015, I've technically been self-employed.
Wonderful.
I'm not saying unemployed. I was
Self-employed, obviously.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so then
So you kept taking freelance gigs with different clients, and then you went into writing as well, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. How is it that somebody who is, let's say, at a point, because I think almost every second person who reaches out to me is at this stage in their life wherein they've done a certain job. Let's say somebody has done a marketing job for a couple of years, and suddenly this realization dawns upon them that it's not made for me, I don't want to do this, and I'm done. And okay, you quit. But then, like you said, you were pretty okay with the paycheck not coming in. What's very, very disappointing for them is to sit with that feeling and let it sink in that, okay, I am not going to get a paycheck every month, and then to further sit down and be okay with the fact that I don't know what I want to do. And then if they want to do something on their own, be self-employed or freelance, then they're like, how do I even get my first client because I've not freelanced in the past? Could you maybe share some tips around how did you go about it?
So if you're really unhappy with your job,
Yeah.
figure out why you're unhappy. It could be either you're burned out, you don't have a good boss, or whatever. This whole what we've seen on the past few years on social media is this glorification of self-employment or hustling or being your own boss.
Boss, yeah.
Being your own boss is really not that easy. It's not everybody's
Cup of tea, yeah.
Because today, see, I have my own personal Instagram as well, where I've been wanting to put sustainability content.
Sometimes new.
Something new, yeah. I wanted to put sustainability content since 2021.
Okay.
I was sitting and working on a script for menstrual cups because I love talking about it. And every month I help like about 100, 150, 200 women answer all their queries on DM. So I was like, there has got to be a better way of doing this where I can just send them my videos. But so I've been thinking of doing that since 2021. And I just found a script that I wrote in like 2021.
Okay.
So, but that video is still not made. Who can I blame for that? Can I blame a toxic boss for it? Can I blame, I don't know, my parents? Because blaming parents is cool for a lot of people. Can I blame, I don't know, what can I blame? I can't blame anyone except myself.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, the biggest problem with self-employment or being a freelancer or whatever is, one, you don't have the certainty of a paycheck, and two, you never come to terms with the fact that you're
The only
own
person to be
boss.
blamed. Yeah.
So when you fuck up, it's your fault. And
Agreed.
people can't take responsibility for that. It's
True.
too much of an ego clash to realize that
I messed up. Yeah.
it's nobody else's fault. It's my fault. So if anyone has to fix it, it's me.
Right.
So it's very hard for a lot of people. So for everybody who's dissatisfied with their life, I would really say find out why you're not happy with your job.
Okay.
Because it's very nice and comfortable to have a paycheck that comes to you. So what are you not happy with? Not happy with the vacations you're getting, not happy with the money coming in. What are you not happy with? Find out that and see if there's something that you can do in your spare time.
Right.
Because it's genuinely not possible ki nobody in the world who's unhappy has no time to do anything else.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Because see, there are people who are genuinely hustling and working hard and are sole breadwinners for their family. I understand if you are in such a situation, you probably don't have the liberty of having
Quitting
all
your
these
job.
thoughts.
Yeah, and yeah.
Because आपके ऊपर जिम्मेदारी है.
Correct.
You are taking care of a lot of people. But when a lot of people get these idle thoughts, it's because that it's not your only responsibility to have all of these.
Hmm.
But losing your paycheck and being your own boss are two of the hardest things anybody can ever do.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hustling, a lot of hard work. Like when we were doing 100 Reasons to Love India, Abhiraj took a break from doing his freelance work, but we had a home loan EMI that would get debited from the bank every month. And we needed to have money so that we could travel.
Right.
Because we are nobodies. Nobody's going to sponsor my bus ka ticket or my hotel ka stays.
Right.
And so he was working on the videos and I was working on content that I could write every single day, day in, day out, day in, day out. I don't have a choice. We have worked in trains, we have worked in buses, we have worked at airports, we have worked everywhere. There's no choice. And I remember when we had gone to Patna and we stayed in like a good hotel because we're carrying equipment with us, we're carrying cameras, we're carrying stuff with us. So I couldn't stay in any random chota sa hotel.
Yeah.
Because if I lose my camera, then it's a huge loss.
Loss. Yeah.
So and I remember after I paid for that hotel, I realized shit, this is like 30-40% of what I will make in this entire month, and I spent it for 1 week hotel stay. I was like, shit. It is hard. It is really hard. And I was like, if you're unhappy with your job, figure out what aspect you're unhappy with. Because this whole life that you see online seems very romantic. Okay? Go and read my LinkedIn posts of how I'm writing every single day saying this is so hard, just don't do it. Because it's crazy hard. It's crazy hard. And
Yeah.
you never know what is gonna work for you, what is not going to work for you. And seeing things not work out for you is even worse.
It's worse. Yeah.
Because then you see it working out for 10 other people but not working out for you. So it's very, very hard. So figure out what you're unhappy with and see if there's anything you can do in your spare time. You know, whether it is picking up a new hobby, learning something new. A lot of times, a lot of these thoughts come from probably sheer boredom or with your life.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like quitting this every alternate day, but most of the times I'm either procrastinating or I'm like bored.
Bored. Yeah.
Doesn't mean I want to genuinely get up and cancel.
Correct.
Delete everything and say bas ho gaya.
Huh.
I'm not going to do that. What I will do is figure out if I can take a break or kick myself and say stop procrastinating and do the work.
Yeah.
So you have to like figure out what you can do to satisfy maybe your creative side or whatever. Like don't quit your job just right now because the job market is very uneven. People are losing their jobs in layoffs.
Yeah.
COVID was tough. After COVID, companies have overhired.
Overhired. Yeah.
And now they're letting go of people. So
It's a pretty bad time.
it is a bad
It is,
time.
yeah.
And on the other hand, people want jobs, but then there are no employees.
Yeah.
Like we're shooting this in our studio, and our studio is in an industrial area. I see helpers wanted signs out on so many of the galas.
Okay.
But nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work there. And there are people losing their jobs.
Yeah.
So there's this very weird.
It's happening simultaneously in parallel.
It's a very weird disconnect.
Yeah.
It's a very weird disconnect. So I would say it would be very foolish if you just quit your job on a whim.
That's true.
These are very weird times right
yeah,
now. These
yeah.
are very weird times right now. So if you have a job and that pays you, be happy about it. Because if you quit because it's fashionable and somebody on the internet told you it's fun to be your own boss and you don't get another job, you'll be screwed.
Yeah.
And that person bears no responsibility because he or she just came online and buckified some stuff.
Yeah, whatever they had to. Correct.
वो बोल के आगे निकल गए लेकिन जिंदगी आपकी बर्बाद हो गई.
True. Repercussions are going to be faced by you, not by them anyways. Correct, but I think that's again some very sound advice because given the kind of times that we are in, I also don't think that you shouldn't be making impulsive decisions with your job. If you have a job, number one, you're really lucky. You should feel blessed, and if you have a job that's paying you again, and if you are especially somebody who's responsible to take care of a family or have some financial responsibility, then it's anyways going to be difficult because you don't know when you're getting that next job. Could be 8 months, could be a year, we don't know because nothing's predictable in these times, right? with that, since we're talking about this nature of not knowing when the paycheck will come in, when you're a creator or working for yourself, you're self-employed, this entire shift that came in, this digital revolution that came in during the pandemic, Niyati, and we all know what happened. Everything just kind of was bizarre. We had content creators. Even today, I think every second there's a new content creator probably who is aspiring to take that up as a full-time profession. And suddenly these new age, careers, like let's say 2020, when I just graduated, I didn't know content creator would be a full-time career or content creation is an industry. Today, it is where it is. I want to understand that how did you come to this place and this point wherein you realize that, you know what, I care for certain things, or we do rather, and we should talk about it and just make videos. No thought beyond that, just that.
So that was our whole idea behind
100
to
reasons,
Love
yeah.
India, because I was like, we were like, our feeds are getting super negative.
You both were not doing jobs back then,
No, no, no.
right?
I mean, he was doing his other
His freelance work.
I was doing my freelance.
Got it.
And then we realized that if we really wanted to do this seriously, we'll have to do it full time.
Huh.
But again, we had a home loan EMI on us, and we didn't have the liberty key. Both of us can quit and go. And
Right.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So he quit his job to focus on video making, and I was continuing to freelance.
Okay.
While also planning 100 Reasons to Love India and stuff like that. So our logic was that people constantly see negative news about India.
Yeah.
They'll see news about all the problems, this thing going wrong, that thing going wrong, this thing going wrong, that thing going wrong. But there are 1,000 people trying to fix it.
Yeah.
You'll never hear about the people who fix it. And you'll always feel like this country has so many problems.
Yeah.
And then your only aspiration in life will be to leave this place.
Yeah, true.
But that's not how it works. That's really not how it works. And we noticed that people had no pride in the country. Mostly because they didn't know anything about the country.
Yeah.
They didn't know the history properly. They didn't know all of our history that's been taught to us has been a history where people have subjugated us, they have conquered us, they have ruled over us. So subconsciously it creates an image that we are just people who get ruled by others. So उसमें pride क्या रखने का? I might as well go to, say, the US, where they say it's the land of the free. And they fought against the British and overthrew them and whatever, stuff like that. So, we'll move there for whatever. You have a fair number of people go, like, I'm not faulting you if you decide to move abroad or whatever. Those are your personal decisions.
Choices, yeah.
But a lot of people simply have disgust for the country. And a lot of this disgust comes because you only see the problems.
True.
You don't see the people who are fixing it. And you never focus on the people who are fixing it. For example, somebody could be fixing a problem in Kerala, but then that solution will probably be applicable in, say, Bihar or UP, some problem. But because there is no connection, nobody knows about all of this.
Yeah.
Nobody knows about any of our historical heroes and stuff like that, or anything. So you will not feel pride in anything. For example, when we went to Nalanda in Bihar, Nalanda University, which was one of the foremost universities globally at that point of time, we noticed that all the Indians who went there treated it like a playground. They were running around, they were making scratch marks.
On the walls?
Rahul loves Kavita.
Right.
Understood. Like so they were doing all that sort of crap. Kids were running around. But there were tourists that had come from Thailand, that had come from China and stuff like that. And they were praying over there because the ruins of Nalanda also happened to be a Buddhist. It was also a place where Buddhist monks used to come and meditate and study. So there are better records about Nalanda in the notes that Chinese travelers left rather than in India. So for Indians it was a playground. For them it was like a Tirtha. So they came to pray over there, and us Indians were running amok, not caring about the significance of that place. And that is the sort of disconnect that we wanted to fix. Because it was like, that is not right.
Yeah.
You see that in Maharashtra also. People will go to the forts and they litter it, and those forts have a historical significance, It gets my gall all the time. It's so annoying that you are literally walking over history, but you have no consideration on it. So that's what we wanted to fix.
Got it.
And that's kind of what we wanted to fix. Like, once the pandemic came, we couldn't travel, but we said we'll sit and we'll make positive videos. We'll sit and we'll focus on solution oriented stuff. We'll figure out if there's something in geopolitics that we need to learn, or if there's a case when other countries are unfairly talking about India, then we read those reports and say that you're being hypocrites. So those were the sort of videos we really wanted to make.
Right.
Because people seem to feel like lately that patriotism and being a nationalist is a crime, but it's not. You guys are here in India and have everything you do today because millions of people shed their blood for the life that you are living right now.
True.
Otherwise, we could have probably still been under the British.
Yeah.
So what sort of a, like, you have to be proud of the people who have done all of that for you. It's very ungrateful, I say, to like dismiss people who are proud of their country and want to do something
for the country and fix it. Yeah. True. No, I agree. And the fact that you said that you happen to go to such a prestigious university and it was born in our country and known globally, and people coming from outside of India were happening to understand its significance and praying there or whatever, looking at it as this place where you have to show, your utmost respect, versus what Indians from India were doing is really shocking. And that probably got to you, and you thought that there is clearly a disconnect, and let's see what we can do in our individual capacity. When it came to making these videos in real time, like you said, the pandemic had come and you couldn't travel to places and experience things for yourself. But you knew there were things that had to be spoken of. Like you said, there were people doing things in different parts of the country which people didn't know of. What did the process really look like to even figure out, what, today the two of us are going to sit down, this is what we're going to research about, find out all the facts around it, and then make a video on it? What was the process like when you started?
At that point of time, it was literally take one video at a time because we had no idea how long the pandemic will go on.
Yeah.
What's going to be how long we're going to be stuck at home, or what's going to happen. So a lot of it was very randomly plucking stuff. We also said that we're going to look at the birth dates or the days that a lot of people passed away, famous people passed away, and then talk about their lives.
Okay.
So that people can learn different things. So that was sort of the approach that we had taken because we didn't know. And then people would come to us and say, okay, talk about climate change, okay, talk about this issue, talk about that issue. So a lot of it went that way. And a lot of our content lately has been answering questions that we ourselves have.
Okay.
For example, why is the Indian passport so weak? Why are our cities flooded? Why do we have urban floods? Why do heat waves happen?
Yeah.
For example, there's a very clear difference between summer and heat waves.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand. They feel like 2 months was just heat wave. It's not. Heat waves are one day at a time.
Yeah.
So today could be a heat wave. Tomorrow could be a normal day.
Right.
A normal summer day. So there's a very clear definition for heat waves. So those are the sort of videos that we're making now, where we have a central question in our minds, and we kind of look at answering those questions.
Very interesting. I know I've kind of seen that pattern myself also, that a lot of the videos that go up now, like you said, are around a very specific, like you said, central question wherein you're trying to obviously get to the crux of it by decoding it in a format wherein you cover it in different parts, right?
Yeah.
And you look at all the aspects and angles of it and then obviously talk about what you think of it.
Yeah.
Ultimately. I want to know a little bit about the research that goes into this, because as much as it's amazing and pleasing to look at a beautiful looking video in terms of aesthetics and well edited, and okay, you're in front of the camera and you can speak whatever it is, to write a script of a 12-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute long YouTube video, which involves facts, statistics, some checks with respect to the past, and so many other nuances. Niyati, how much time is to be spent to get, in terms of research only, I'm asking, to even get that content out?
That depends, to be really honest.
Okay.
We've got to sit and read pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
So got to figure out different things and what we want to do, and the reading can be anything. Like, for example, I'll give you the urban flooding example. So why do India's urban areas
yeah,
flood?
yeah.
Why there's urban flooding? I was reading a Niti Aayog report actually on
ठीक
it.
है.
And then the solutions that I found for the video were buried in the report in like a small infographic type thing they had done.
Okay.
It was literally a speech bubble where they had written the name of the place and said this is what they do. It was
Oh.
not even a paragraph. And people ask me, why do you read and why don't you use AI to shorten it? I said AI would have never found
that, yeah.
and that was the crux of the video. By saying that I'm not going to give you a solution that the US or UK or any country in Europe does, because they don't have heavy rains.
Yeah.
But Thailand does. Singapore has a tropical climate like ours.
Yeah.
If they can figure this out, then so can we.
True.
Because it's of a similar climate level. So they also have hot days. They also have humidity. For example, like Mumbai does. So then, if they can figure it out, so can we. But that was buried in a report like that. So a lot of it is very random. Like I can't really pinpoint it. People
Got it.
ask me how you research, and they're very disappointed by the answers all the time. But my answer is always, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's a lot of hard work because you never know what you read, wo kahan kaam mein aaye.
And I'm sure you don't just obviously go through like one set of resources also. What I mean is it cannot just be articles or it cannot just be reports also. I'm sure it's multiple. It's a mix.
It's a mix of everything.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like creating a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
It's like you find something and then you find something over there that's interesting, so you find more about it, then you read more about it.
Yeah, and then you connect and then you put everything together.
It's a lot of hard work.
It is, I'm sure.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
So like it's not easy. It's not just looking at the top 5 pages on Google and then just copy pasting stuff.
No, typically, obviously, it cannot be that.
But then a lot of people have that. It's hard work. Just learn to put in the work, and then you'll find, when you do it for a really long time, then you'll find patterns. You'll be able to extract information better.
But do you think from when you started to now, has the kind of time that needs to go into a video coming out as an output reduced?
It's been both ways. In terms of some videos have definitely come out faster. Sometimes it's taken me, like the first video script that I wrote, it took me 3 months to write it.
3 months.
Yeah, because I was like, no, ye sahi nahi hai, ye sahi nahi hai. I was adding, deleting, sitting on it for 3 months. And then now it can take me up to a week to write a script. So.
Got it. Right.
Yeah.
So there is some process that has come into it, obviously.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Great. And for someone who, let's say, is just starting out with content creation, I'm not even saying they want to create similar videos to yours, right? Or something similar to what Abhi and New as a channel does. But just for someone to get started with content in 2024, where it's extremely overwhelming to see the number of people who want to do it, and everybody with a phone can literally do it. What does it really take to stand out? Or do you even need to do something to stand out as a creator?
I feel if you really want to stand out, you need to have a personality. You can't be somebody who just, and this happens for every creator, like they may start off by just looking at trends or hopping on trends, but ultimately people follow them for their personality. They'll follow them for their anecdotes or the quirky stuff that they end up doing. So those things matter. Like, don't lose your personality, don't lose your individuality. So then that's the biggest thing.
Right.
And the second thing is, this is a test match, it's not a T20. So if you think you're going to come here and make a video and then you think it's very nice and then it's going to go viral, that's not how it works. You might put out a video and then the chances of that getting viral or working out or not working out is like tossing a coin.
Yeah.
It's pretty much left to luck. I mean, of course, there are ways you can learn about the algorithm, you can hack it by shooting better, by doing a lot of tips and tricks, but still, a lot of it is pure luck. So
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of hard work, but a lot of it is also luck.
Is also luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to steel yourself for that. That it is a lot of it is luck. So
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of it may work, a lot of it may not work. So it's a constant process of iteration.
Hmm.
So you've got to learn, unlearn, relearn a lot. So that's how it is. I mean,
Right.
it's like I said, it's a test match. So you can't say that I'm going to play like Virat Kohli all the time.
Hmm.
You have to most of the times, 99% of the times, you'll have to play like Cheteshwar Pujara and take the hits and just stay there.
Stay there. Yeah.
That's
That's how it is.
as accurate as I can get for a cricket-friendly nation.
With that, Niyati, obviously, when you talk about content creation as a profession and when people think of taking it up full time, for example, I complete 2 years, in fact, of quitting my job in like 5 days or so. And I feel that when I took that step, because I mean, the most relatable example I can give is of myself for the audience. And then I'd ask you why I'm asking you this. When I made that decision, it was not necessarily based on how much money was I, let's say, able to make to match up to my salary, or the day it surpassed my salary, I was like, oh, chalo, let's quit my job now because the side hustle is paying enough. And when people tend to decide that now it is time, like you said, you and Abhiraj also wanted to do this full time, but you had home loan EMIs to be paid and there were responsibilities and different things. Both of you couldn't quit in one go. But let's say somebody has realized, I'm really passionate about this. I definitely want to create content and I want to do this for a living. How can they, make that decision slowly and steadily, maybe, to know that, okay, you can gradually come to a point where you can quit your job and do this full time? Because, like you said, there's no certain income that's going to come in.
You can literally do this part-time.
Okay.
Because we have a friend who works a full-time job and also has a handle where she does art-related content.
Okay.
And then because of that art-related content, she's able to get orders for paintings and stuff like that from the audience. So nobody's asking you to put one video every single day.
Hmm.
You put one video a week, 2 videos a week,
Okay.
and figure out what you can do with your job until you figure out, one, that it's paying money, and two, it's something that you like doing.
Hmm.
I know people who have started pages, but then it's a lot of effort to continuously keep posting content, and that content has to be visually appealing as well.
Yeah.
Because with the way social media is right now, you can't just post a very random photo. That's how Instagram was maybe 10 years ago, but that's not how it is today.
True.
So you can post slightly, home घर पे shoot किया हुआ video sort of a stuff on YouTube, especially if you're doing cooking, because that's how a lot of women put up their videos.
Videos, yeah.
That's how they start. So that works in that field because people are able to understand कि ठीक है, this is somebody else's kitchen and it's not a set and it's okay. But you can't do that stuff on Instagram, because on Instagram it has to be aesthetic, it has to look good. Otherwise people don't relate to it. And those are just, so the pressure of keeping up with content and putting out that much content is true, it's real.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody who's already doing a job but you're thinking of doing content creation, just do it on the side and try it out, right? The advantage of being a beginner is nobody knows. The good and the bad part about that is nobody knows.
Yeah.
So even if you screw up, nobody cares. If you do good, then also nobody cares, because, well, until you've become a big viral sensation, nobody cares. So
Yeah.
that's how it is. It's a slow process. So nobody's asking you to sit and go all guns blaring every single time. You can just take it one video at a time and then see whether, first off, you're enjoying the process of creating that much content, and two, whether you can continue it for a long time. Because
Yeah.
if you can't continue it for a long time, then why do you want to quit?
True.
It may just be something that seemed really interesting for you in your head, but that's not how it is in real life, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I really like the fact that you said that why do you even need to quit your job? You can probably just, you can keep continuing to do your job and just do it as a side hustle. For sure. Right.
It is possible.
For the ones who are very keen on still doing it full time, Niyati, I'm not asking you how do you monetize your content. That's not the question. When should a person monetize their content?
Actually,
Ideally.
Actually, you can start to monetize your content right from the get-go, and I don't mean so. I'll be really honest. The Indian market is not that mature in terms of monetization options. A lot of it is it's very easy and it's very open abroad. Like there are a lot of business coaches, life coaches, and stuff like that, and who'll have say 5,000 followers, 10,000 followers, but then they'll still be making money by selling courses and taking sessions and coaching people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That I don't know whether such sort of a model works in India,
India.
because the society is inherently thoda low trust. So monetizing in India is thoda different. So if you're watching this as an Indian audience, I'm really sorry, the ovarian lottery was not kind to you. It was not kind. So the number of followers you have is not really necessary. You don't need to have.
You don't have to have a certain
No,
number,
you don't
you're
have to
saying.
have a certain number. You can start monetizing the moment you sort of like start creating content. So
Why is it that the moment you talk about monetization as a creator, the only thing that comes to anybody's mind is brands
because
and brand collabs?
Because if you're creating on Instagram, the platform doesn't pay.
Correct.
Facebook monetization has drastically dropped. So
Yeah.
the only platform that pays
Is YouTube.
is YouTube and Twitter. But then I don't really know somebody who
Earns decently enough.
earns decently
enough on Twitter, yeah.
घर नहीं चलता
हाँ,
Twitter
उस-
के पैसे से.
for sure.
It is chump change. So that's how it is. Like, so you've got to create content on YouTube, but the process of creating content on YouTube is quite tedious. It takes effort.
It's
So
time consuming.
it takes effort.
Effort,
it's time
yeah.
consuming. So then not everybody does it. People
Yeah.
find creating content on Instagram is much more
Easier.
or better. You can put a photo or a carousel post and still do it.
How long have you been on YouTube now?
YouTube, Instagram, both, I guess we started in 2017. So yeah,
Yeah. It's been a while.
it's been a while.
It's been a while. And the one thing that you've realized, I'm not asking you for a tip or a hack or anything. What's the one fundamental thing that you've seen as a difference between Instagram as a platform versus YouTube?
Instagram is discovery based, YouTube is search based. So they're fundamentally different that way. In Instagram, you will scroll, so you will discover people on Instagram.
For your content per se, how have you seen the user behavior to be very different on both the platforms?
On YouTube, people are used to watching longer videos.
Huh.
Actually, people on Instagram
Also watch
our videos
Yeah.
till the end. So then I don't really know.
Hmm.
It's just Instagram allows me to have conversations with them on DMs. YouTube doesn't.
Right.
So that's for me. Otherwise, people on YouTube will probably, I can reach random audiences because they'll search for my video on YouTube. I don't know if people will randomly stumble upon my longer videos on Instagram.
On Instagram. That way. Got it. And do you also feel that when it comes to a beginner who wants to start, because YouTube takes the kind of effort it takes, would it still be the right platform to begin with? Basis your niche or domain?
That depends on you. To be really honest, YouTube is a much more forgiving platform than Instagram, because you can put a video once a week on YouTube, but do it consistently. You can put a video once every 2 weeks on YouTube.
True.
But do it consistently for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then that's how you can do it. But Instagram demands you to be present on the platform. Like, you have to put up stories, you have to respond to people's comments, you have to respond to DMs, everything to keep up engagement. That's just how the platform is built. So it all depends on you and how much you want to pour into it.
Makes
YouTube
sense.
is quite chill, actually. If you're able to consistently put up content, YouTube is quite chill.
Yeah, got it. From a monetary standpoint, what can somebody just getting into the field and wanting to become a full-time content creator expect from this field?
That really depends, to be really honest. I mean, depends on your niche also.
Let's say somebody has 1,000 followers
It's really hard.
on Instagram.
No, it depends on your niche, because you may not get anything if you're, say, in the infotainment wala field, but then if you're maybe doing lifestyle content, then you can collab with brands, you can do barter deals, you can use different cosmetics, you can try out different products. So a lot of it depends on your niche.
Got it.
So
But what I do understand is from your answer that there is no certain amount that can ever be attributed to it, even at a certain stage.
no,
For sure. There isn't. And I think there are a lot of times wherein you can significantly make probably a year's income in a month also? You can. It depends. If you and then
can.
and then for the next 3 months you couldn't be making
Yeah, you
anything. I'm
couldn't be
speaking from my experience.
Yeah, you couldn't be. And of course, when you say make, there may be months where you will make the income, but it'll be a year before you're paid. So
Paid.
technically, you've not made anything.
That was a good one. Yeah.
So,
True.
yeah.
Because making also has the
Me,
receiving
I'm a commerce student. For me, the loop is closed when I get money in my bank.
Bank.
That could be a very long time. Like sometimes it can be a year or 2 years before you're paid also. So
yeah, true.
so yeah, all the making doesn't matter
Until it hits your bank account, obviously. It makes a lot of sense, and I understand. With that, since we're talking so much about money, Niyati, personally, would you really do with your money in terms of money management? Like, where does most of your money really go? Is it reinvested into the business? Do you save most of it? Do you invest? How is it managed?
it's a mix between everything. We have employees as well, full-time
Right.
employees, freelancers, so we have to pay their salaries, we have to pay the rent for our studio.
Correct.
A lot of it gets reinvested in terms of continuously upgrading our equipment or
Yeah.
making sure we are getting things that will help us upgrade our production quality, upgrade our audio quality, or maybe even make our life easier. So a lot of it gets spent also,
Yeah.
and a lot of it gets saved also. So then it's a mix between both. I can't really pinpoint like an accurate graph.
Yeah, that's
like,
fine.
For being a commerce student and doing my own accounts, I can't really match that, but it's like it works both ways. That I have to spend on the business also. I have to spend on upgrading cameras, on upgrading lights, on upgrading audio equipment and stuff, and also on expenses for staff. And we're always hiring more people, so then
Yeah.
there's money that's spent on that, or anything we may pay researchers or assistants and stuff. So there's money that goes for that. So it's both ways.
Both ways.
Yeah, but then as a couple, we are not that flamboyant. We don't feel the need to go and party every day or
Yeah.
spend
Outrageously
yeah,
on
I
anything.
mean,
Yeah.
so that way it's fine. It's fine. We've never lived beyond our means. So
Which I feel is a
yeah.
great thing, obviously, to do.
No, we don't live beyond our means, and we understand that this is how it is. This is how we need to manage stuff. So then it's fine. Like if we need to upgrade something, it's because there is a genuine need. It's not that we saw an ad and we're like, chalo, let's go buy this. So
True.
it's not like that.
Yeah, no impulsive decisions. There's a thought to everything, obviously,
Yeah,
and a
there
logical
may be
reasoning.
impulsive decisions relating to say technology upgradations, but then that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's fine.
Like my parents had no upper cap when it came to education.
Education.
For us, any technology upgrade has no cap because it could significantly jump our production quality. It could make our life easier. Anything it could help us in any way. So then there's no cap for that.
Got it. Understood. And uh, if I was to also understand a little bit about, if there is at all, since you guys keep working on different projects also, like I do know about the project that you have worked on wherein you've planted a significant number of mango trees.
Yeah.
Right? And there are so many other projects that you are working on which probably you don't talk about on the internet per se also. Is there something exciting or anything new that you're planning to do in the coming days that you'd like to share with the audience? Anything that's
So
been
we're working with a company to do a social impact project in a village, and I'm not going to share too much.
Sure.
Because we'll have a video that will come out soon, so then that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
We also do the mango project every year.
Every year, yeah.
So this is the 4th year. Last year we collected some 3,25,000 seeds, and we have 65,000 saplings that have survived 1 year.
Wow.
So now this year they will be planted, and this year let's see how many mango seeds
Mango
we're
seeds,
getting.
yeah.
So that apart from that, both of us regularly contribute to animal welfare. So there are a lot of people who take care of animals, and there may be animals who are injured who need money for treatment, or they may be feeding animals, getting them neutered.
Yeah.
So we donate for those causes. We also donate to say NGOs and stuff who conduct sessions with rural school kids, give them sustainable products, upcycle textile waste and stuff. So those are the few causes that we support. So,
Very
but
interesting.
there are a lot of
Yeah.
exciting things coming up. We are figuring out a model where we can do more social impact projects and make a real difference in the country. So there's a lot of exciting stuff that's going to come up in the coming year. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yes, please do. Amazing. Yeah, with that, before we obviously move to the rapid fire segment, which is a quick segment I keep towards the end, just, to also show the other side of your personality. There's one question that I ask all my guests. It's the most cliche one, the most simple one, but I think it tells you a lot about how a person looks at life, probably, and it just helps me get a deeper insight into how my guests think. Um, like you said, I mean, certain things and everything that you did, there was no plan or set to say route to it. But most of the times you were okay with, let's say, quitting a job or not doing the articleship. Doing the articleship and then not, let's say, looking for a job per se aligned to the profession, or then taking the risk of leaving the job and doing this full time, etc. I'm sure there are a lot of times you still fail and will continue to fail, a lot of times where you succeed. As you sit today and we have this conversation, what is your outlook towards success?
My outlook towards success has changed a lot. I've realized that success is, we tend to chase behind success and chase behind happiness, and that sort of attitude never helps us in life. So what we need to do is we need to chase contentment, because happiness or success is like a one time thing. Like, for example, getting good marks in your exam, or getting 1 million followers, 1 lakh followers, 5 lakh followers, 10,000 followers, whatever the milestone is. That milestone will come and go.
Yeah.
In half an hour, 1 hour of getting that milestone, you'll be done.
Hmm.
So how long can you chase that success?
True.
You can't. You can't chase that success forever.
Hmm.
What you can chase, and not chase, actually, chase is the wrong word. What you can focus on is contentment.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes when I sit, and my cats, who have frequently disturbed this episode, will come and they'll sit and they'll snuggle with me.
Yeah.
Or they'll purr, and then, or they'll play with me, or they'll do some time pass. I feel very satisfied with my life. I feel very content.
Hmm.
I'm very content in that moment. I feel very happy. So that is what I want everybody to do. Rather than chasing success, which may be a one off thing, focus on contentment. Focus on being content with your life, because then you will find the sort of peace that constantly chasing behind success will never give you.
True.
Yeah.
No, I really like how you put that, and the fact that you said it's a one time, one moment, outcome related, outcome driven thing, because you wanted that rank in an exam, you got it, what then? You wanted a certain number of followers, it's achieved, what next? But contentment is something that will probably stay for a lifetime if it does. And I think that that's something that people should be striving to achieve. Thank you so much for sharing that, Niyati. And I think with that, let me quickly segue into the rapid fire as well. I just want you to answer whatever comes to your mind as the first thought, first word, or the first sentence, right?
Sure.
The first question, Niyati: money, fame, reputation, success, which one is the most important to you right now?
None of them, actually.
None.
None of them. Because I feel like everything comes with a double edged sword, and there is this concept in economics called the law of diminishing margin.
Margin. Yeah, yeah.
So, like, money comes. Like, of course, it's very nice to earn money, but then that money comes, that fame comes, that success comes. But along with it comes a lot of other shit as well.
Yeah.
A lot of other baggage as well. So it's like a mixed bag. So right now I'm like, I just want to be content. I just want
to.
Yeah.
Makes sense. The second question, Niyati, I want to know what is the most expensive purchase that you have made till date?
Well, actually, when we went to Finland, Tabhi, I saved up, and then I treated Abhi. I surprised him by upgrading to business class.
Amazing.
The tickets. It was really nice. I mean, I had to save up for it.
Yeah.
But it was great.
I'm sure, and a memorable one
Yeah, it was
also.
very memorable.
An experience,
It was
obviously.
an experience.
Yeah,
That
I'm
was,
sure.
That was amazing.
Great. Third question is, if you had the choice to host a roundtable dinner conversation with any 3 people, living or dead, who would they be?
I would do it with Swami Vivekananda is who I can think of right now,
Okay.
and another historical figure. Kind of random, but the first name that pops up is, I guess, J.R.D. Tata, and then the third one could be, I don't know, maybe Chanakya, I guess.
Wow, what an interesting table. Swami Vivekanand, J.R.D. Tata, and Chanakya on one table with new.
Yeah,
Amazing.
interesting,
Very
insights from
interesting
all of them.
insights. And I'm sure you're going to probably make a video after that featuring all 3 of them.
I wish.
How about that?
I wish I could. I wish I could.
Interesting. Great. The fourth question of the rapid fire round, I want to know that if you had to probably make a choice, let's say between doing content creation or doing just social impact projects, and you have to pick one, which one would you pick? Difficult.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure really. I enjoy doing
Both.
both. Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm not sure. I enjoy
Difficult
doing
one,
both.
I know.
Yeah.
Great. The last question for you for the rapid fire round, Niyati, is what according to you is that one skill that everybody, irrespective of their age, should definitely learn and master in their life?
You should master, I guess, curiosity, because
Mm.
a lot of people are really not curious about anything. So, master curiosity.
Wanting to learn
Yeah,
more
wanting
about
to
things,
learn new
dig
things.
deeper.
Yeah, learn new things.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Perfect. With that, I think it's been a wonderful conversation. There's so much that I've gotten to know about Niyati that I didn't know. Beyond just Abhi and you, obviously, and your personal journey. I really hope that everyone who stuck around till the end takes back a lot of insights. And I mean, not that I have to, but we will be linking all of Abhi and New's social media links in the description. Do definitely check it out. And I had a great time. I hope you had a good time, Niyati.
I did.
Glad to know that. And that's it for this episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Dhera Decodes channel. I will see you in the next one. Thank you.